During the 2012 session, there were a plethora of bills introduced addressing the issue of voting rights. Many of them were designed to address the less than 0.1% voter fraud that occurred in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And when there was, in actuality, no real voter fraud. Voting is a fundamental right in America. It's fundamental to freedom. Senate Bill 1256 will make it harder for hundreds of thousands of Virginians to vote by mandating voters show a specific kind of ID at the polls. A kind of ID these politicians know many voters don't have. Senate Bill 1256 will disproportionately affect seniors, students, low-income, and minority voters. Our elections should be free, fair, and accessible. We're all concerned about election integrity, but the real threat is politicians who are trying to change the rules to rig the outcome. Just 6 months ago, we spent $2 million to educate voters about changes in the voting laws. Now we want to change the laws again, and for what? Because people stood in line, despite the efforts at voter suppression for hours. You know, people got the necessary identification needed to present at the polls. And when those rules didn't work, here we are again. These frequent rule changes don't make our elections safer. They confuse and discourage voters who can no longer have confidence that they have the right ID to be able to vote. Virginia has an ugly history of making it harder for some communities to vote. The time it takes away from work and the transportation costs required to get to the local registrar's office during business hours to apply for a new ID is expensive for a lot of people. Even though the actual ID is free, many voters must still give up wages and jump through hoops to get down to the office to get one. Those costs might as well be the new modern-day poll tax. We've never solved anything in this country with less democracy, and we shouldn't start now. Voting is one thing that brings us all together and makes us equal as Americans.